Hey, I'm Josh. Over the last 3 weeks, I've been working on a game called Mansion, and this is the third devlog for that game. Let's go! So here's what it looked like a couple of weeks ago. You can see that I had the basic lighting and player controller working. You can see that in my last devlog. And here's what it looks like now. You'll have to imagine the sound, because there isn't any yet. And then he dies. That's it. Nah, wait, that's not really what happened. Actually, he gets slammed into the wall forevermore, and you can't escape. The end. So, as you can see, I've created some fancy image effects that allow you to see the walls and also make the lights glow. I have some real art for the game, interactive doors that can be opened gradually with the mouse, interactive boxes that you can push and drag if you grab onto them, and of course, a giant snake. There's a lot of visual problems that I have to solve because of this decision that I've made to make the game faithfully top-down, no perspective, no isometric. In other words, you can only see the tops of things, such as the top of your head, the shoulders, the floor, but you certainly can't see the walls because they are directly up and down. That causes lots of problems because usually you can see walls. If you look at what I had a couple of weeks ago, you'll notice that the walls are just black. My solution is to take things that you usually wouldn't be able to see, like the top of a wall, for example, and make it visible, but with a roughed up, broken off appearance. I was considering drawing everything in a 2D fashion with my graphics tablet, but I came up with a better solution, which is to use Blender to create most of my art assets. This allows me to model something with normal physical dimensions, such as this jar here, and then I get the top-down perspective for free, just by putting the camera above the object. So this jar, for example, will simply just look like a circle, which is something that I'll need to take into consideration if I want a jar in my game. By default, I found that colored and lit objects in Blender look super weird when I place them in my game, as they have all this shading that doesn't seem to belong. The trick I've found in Blender is to use the emission input instead of the base input. I set the base to black, and then I set the emission to whatever I want the color to be, which provides a nice flat look, and then I just play with it until it looks nice from above. Now, back to the game. I wanted the walls to be visible, but as I said, lights don't light the inside of a wall. I thought of blurring the light mask so that if a light hits a wall, then the blurred part will go over the wall, and therefore you'll be able to see the wall. But I didn't want to be able to actually see anything on the other side of the wall, so the blurred light would actually light up the stuff on the other side of the wall, which is no good. But I came up with a nice solution, which is to put all of the walls in their own layer, render them by themselves, then use the blurred light on the walls, but everything else use the non-blurred light. So therefore you can't see what's on the other side of the wall, but you can see the wall itself. Perfect. Moving on to the doors and the boxes, I have a component called player interaction, and what I do is I make a subclass called box interaction or door interaction. Then there are some virtual methods which I can implement to deal with the various kinds of actions that a player can perform on the box or the door object. The player object actually does the rest of the work in figuring out which object it wants to interact with and which signals to actually send to it. When the player walks up to a box, onEnter is called, and when the player clicks on the box, onBeginInteract is called, and you can do whatever you want in those functions. To make the box pushing logic simpler, the box actually hijacks the player's movement and attaches the player to the side of the box and applies 100% of the forces actually required to move the box, and the player just comes along because it's attached. Then there's the giant snake, which I created just yesterday. It was fun making the model with all the materials in Blender, and that took most of the time. Right now the snake is super dumb, and literally just wiggles its head in the direction of the player. I think you will have no health in the game, and instead you'll just have to avoid being caught at all. This will hopefully mean that the snake doesn't really have to be much smarter than this, and it's more about solving the puzzle than it is about surviving. All of this stuff required work under the hood, which of course took most of the time. But I think it's starting to look like a game now, which is really cool. Thankfully, all of the parts of the game only have to be written once, and then I can reuse them indefinitely. Hopefully soon I'll have an actual working level with a puzzle that you actually need to solve. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna keep posting videos regularly, so please subscribe if you want to see more of this. And, of course, leave a like if you want to make me feel good.